My mother-in-law secretly spiked my drink with alcohol at my own wedding. I lost consciousness, the reception was ruined, and now she's trying to buy my forgiveness for $5,000. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm 27. A week ago, I married my wonderful husband, Jayden, who is 32. Our wedding was beautiful, like something out of a telenovela. We met 2 years ago at a local coffee shop I frequented. Morning coffee was my ritual to wake up before work. One day, a tall guy with kind eyes was standing in line behind me. He seemed nice, but honestly, I didn't pay him much attention at the time. All I could think about was getting my latte. Later that week, we ran into each other again. This time, we struck up a conversation while waiting for our drinks. We talked about everything: favorite books, funny childhood stories, and our shared love for that cozy coffee shop. We laughed so much that for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. Looking back, I realized my first impression was rushed. Maybe I was too caught up in my routine, or maybe Jayden just wasn't my usual type. But something changed that day. There was a genuine kindness in him, and his smile had a warmth I couldn't ignore. We exchanged numbers, and that same evening, he invited me to dinner. We went to a small Italian restaurant on a quiet street. The food was amazing, but the conversation was even better. We talked for hours, and it felt so easy and natural, as if we had known each other forever. It turned out we had a lot in common: a love of old movies, a secret passion for karaoke, though neither of us can sing well, and tacos. In the following weeks, we saw each other more and more. We went hiking, explored museums, and even made a failed attempt at a pottery class. The more time I spent with Jayden, the more I realized how special he was. He was funny, smart, supportive, and always knew how to make me laugh. He made me a better person while letting me be myself. Then, on our second anniversary, Jayden proposed. We had gone away for the weekend to a cozy cabin in the mountains. Snow was falling gently outside as we sat cuddled by the fireplace. He got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. I don't even remember his exact words because I was completely captivated by the love in his eyes. Of course, I said yes. When we returned, I excitedly began planning the wedding, and that's when things took an unexpected turn. After the engagement, I met his mother, Maria, 57, for the first time. She lived out of town, so we hadn't had the chance to meet before. At first, Maria was very sweet. She said she was happy her son was finally getting married. Jayden was her only child, and she mentioned she had always wanted more children, so my joining the family was a significant event for her, as if she were gaining another child. She gave me a warm hug and said she couldn't wait to get to know me better. But things changed very quickly. One weekend, she came to stay with us to help with wedding preparations. I was happy, thinking we would bond, but her behavior grew increasingly uncomfortable. The first passive-aggressive comment came during breakfast on Saturday. I had made pancakes, and while Jayden was outside with his coffee, Maria smiled at me and said, "Oh, I see you're not too worried about carbs, are you?" I laughed it off, thinking it was just an offhand remark, but it stung. Later that day, as we were looking through wedding dress magazines, Maria pointed to a gown and said, "This dress is so beautiful, but it's made for a very specific body type. Not everyone can pull it off," while giving me a pointed look. It was a subtle jab suggesting I wouldn't be able to wear it. I just nodded, trying to ignore it, but I felt uneasy. The next morning, while going through my kitchen cabinets, she said, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks here. I would try to keep healthier food around. You don't want to gain weight before the wedding, do you?" It was hard to believe she was still fixated on my weight, and it was starting to really hurt. It felt like she was deliberately picking on me.
even though she always had a smile on her face and a friendly tone in her voice. The strangest part was that Maria never made these comments in front of Jayden. It was like she had a switch. Around her son, she was all charm and kindness, but the moment he left the room, the barbs would start. I felt like I was living in two different realities. One where I was accepted and loved, and another where I was constantly criticized and judged. At first, I decided not to tell Jayden. She was his mother, after all, and I didn't want to create tension, especially when we were newly engaged and so happy. I told myself it was a minor issue I could handle. Besides, I'm not a skinny woman. I have curves and I love my body. I had worked hard to build my confidence. Maria's comments were more annoying than destructive. It seemed like she was just trying to chip away at my self-esteem, but I wasn't going to let her. However, Maria started visiting more frequently. It felt like she was at our house every weekend, and it was driving me crazy. I worked Monday to Friday, and weekends were my only time for wedding planning. But wherever I turned, Maria was there, helping or just hovering. It was hard to focus when she was constantly interjecting with her opinions and acting like she knew best.
One weekend, she called to say she was coming over again. My heart sank. I desperately needed some time alone to plan without her interference. So I told her I would be busy and not at home. She asked what I would be doing. Before I could stop myself, I blurted out that I was going dress shopping. I guess I just wanted her to understand I had important things to do. To my horror, she was thrilled and said she wanted to come with me. I didn't know how to refuse without being rude, so I reluctantly agreed. Soon enough, she was at my door with a wide smile, saying how happy she was to help me find the perfect dress. I tried to smile back, but my stomach was in knots. I already knew what a dreadful trip this would be. We went to several bridal shops. From the moment we walked in, Maria went into mom mode, suggesting dresses I didn't like and making comments about how certain styles wouldn't suit my figure. It was exhausting. I felt like I couldn't even breathe without feeling her disapproval. When I tried on a dress I genuinely loved, she said, "It's beautiful, but don't you think it's a bit tight around the waist? Maybe something a little looser would be more flattering." I was so disappointed. I really liked that dress, but her words made me second-guess myself. By the end of the day, I hadn't chosen a dress and felt completely defeated. Maria went home, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Over the next few days, she kept texting me asking when I was going dress shopping again. Each time I replied that I didn't know when I'd have the time. I was determined not to tell her my plans. But everything fell apart when Jayden told his mom I was going to a dress shop the next day. She called immediately asking what time she should come over. I had to make a decision. Maria had already made so many comments about my body that I was terrified to take her with me. I knew if she came, the day would be ruined by her judgment. So I decided to make up an excuse. I told her the bridal salon had a rule. You could only bring 2 people, and my mom and maid of honor were already coming with me. Yes, I knew it was a stupid lie, but it was the best I could come up with at that moment. Maria immediately declared it was absurd, asking, "What kind of bridal salon only allows 2 people? That's ridiculous." I started stammering. "Yeah, I know, it's weird, but that's what they said." I was sweating, realizing how foolish my lie sounded. I quickly added that I had to go and ended the call before she could ask more questions. As soon as I hung up, a wave of guilt washed over me. I hated lying, especially to Jayden's mother. But I just couldn't endure another day of her criticism. I decided to focus on the positive and remind myself that this day was supposed to be joyful and exciting. My mom and my friend picked me up and we went to the bridal salon. I tried to push the guilt aside and enjoy the moment, and I managed to find a dress I absolutely fell in love with. After that, Maria stopped calling, texting, and visiting. She continued to talk to Jayden, which was a relief. At least things weren't awkward between them. I sent her a photo of me in the dress, hoping to share my joy with her. Her only reply was a thumbs up emoji. I didn't know what to make of it, but decided not to dwell on it. I had too much wedding planning to do to waste energy on her reaction. As the wedding day approached, I was busy with preparations and didn't message Maria again. There was so much to finalize: the guest list, the catering, the decorations. Finally, the big day arrived. It exceeded all my expectations. The ceremony was beautiful, and I couldn't stop smiling as I walked down the aisle toward Jayden. The look on his face when he saw me in my dress was priceless. It made all the stress of planning worthwhile. We exchanged vows and rings, and just like that, we were husband and wife. The reception started off perfectly. We had a stunning venue, the weather was ideal, the food was delicious, and all our guests seemed to be having a wonderful time. I was thrilled with our first dance. Jayden and I had taken a few lessons, and we managed to not step on each other's toes. Everything felt like a fairy tale. I was on cloud 9. Everything was going smoothly until I decided to get a drink. I went to the bar for something refreshing, and Maria was standing there. She turned to me with a wide smile and said, "I see you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink. Just relax and enjoy yourself." I was surprised by her sudden enthusiasm, but thought maybe she was trying to make up for the past awkwardness. She handed me a non-alcoholic cocktail. I thanked her and took a sip. A few minutes later, I started feeling drowsy, but figured I was just tired. Then, I collapsed on the floor and lost consciousness. Everything went dark, and the next thing I heard was Jayden's panicked voice calling for an ambulance. There was a desperate anxiety in his tone as he tried to keep me from passing out completely. People started to gather around, but everything was a blur. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly brought me around and started asking what I had eaten and drunk that day. I told them everything, including the food at the reception and the cocktail Maria had given me. They became concerned and asked if anything was unusual or if I had taken any medication. At that moment, Maria looked guilty. She confessed that there was alcohol in the drink. She said she didn't think it would be a problem and just wanted to help me relax. I was in shock. Why would she give me alcohol without telling me? My friend and maid of honor, Emily, told the paramedics that I had taken an anti-anxiety pill a few minutes before walking down the aisle. I had been so nervous about everything going perfectly that I took a small dose to calm down. It turned out that the combination of the medication and alcohol had caused me to pass out. Apparently, a chemical reaction had simply knocked me out. The paramedics explained that mixing alcohol with certain medications can be extremely dangerous, and that I was lucky it wasn't worse. After the paramedics left, Jayden turned to Maria and told her to leave. His voice trembled with rage, and Maria looked stunned. She tried to defend herself, insisting she meant no harm and that it was all a misunderstanding, but Jayden wouldn't listen. He yelled at her to leave the reception immediately. I had never seen him so angry, and it broke my heart to see him fighting with his own mother on our wedding day. Everything was going smoothly until I decided to get a drink. I went to the bar for something refreshing, and Maria was standing there. She turned to me with a wide smile and said, "I see you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink. Just relax and enjoy yourself." I was surprised by her sudden enthusiasm, but thought maybe she was trying to make up for the past awkwardness. She handed me a non-alcoholic cocktail. I thanked her and took a sip. A few minutes later, I started feeling drowsy, but figured I was just tired. Then I collapsed on the floor and lost consciousness. Everything went dark, and the next thing I heard was Jayden's panicked voice calling for an ambulance. There was a desperate anxiety in his tone as he tried to keep me from passing out completely. People started to gather around, but everything was a blur. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly brought me around and started asking what I had eaten and drunk that day. I told them everything, including the food at the reception and the cocktail Maria had given me. They became concerned and asked if anything was unusual or if I had taken any medication. At that moment, Maria looked guilty. She confessed that there was alcohol in the drink. She said she didn't think it would be a problem and just wanted to help me relax. I was in shock. Why would she give me alcohol without telling me? My friend and maid of honor, Emily, told the paramedics that I had taken an anti-anxiety pill a few minutes before walking down the aisle. I had been so nervous about everything going perfectly that I took a small dose to calm down. It turned out that the combination of the medication and alcohol had caused me to pass out. Apparently, a chemical reaction had simply knocked me out. The paramedics explained that mixing alcohol with certain medications can be extremely dangerous, and that I was lucky it wasn't worse. After the paramedics left, Jayden turned to Maria and told her to leave. His voice trembled with rage, and Maria looked stunned. She tried to defend herself, insisting she meant no harm and that it was all a misunderstanding. But Jayden wouldn't listen. He yelled at her to leave the reception immediately. I had never seen him so angry, and it broke my heart to see him fighting with his own mother on our wedding day. The whole commotion left me feeling terrible, and the festive atmosphere was shattered. The guests were uncomfortable, and the joy we had worked so hard to create had evaporated. People started leaving one by one, and soon the reception ended prematurely. It was painful to see everyone leave so early, and the day I had dreamed of for so long was ruined. Jayden and I went back to our hotel room, and I tried to process what had happened. I felt numb and exhausted, and then a wave of sadness washed over me. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but instead it turned into a disaster because of my mother-in-law's thoughtless prank. I couldn't believe Maria's carelessness had destroyed our special celebration. Maria kept sending messages and calling both me and Jayden, but we didn't answer. We needed time to think and decide what to do. I could see how hard this was on Jayden. He loved his mother, but was also incredibly angry about what she had done. The situation was complicated, and I didn't know how to fix it. When we finally got home, I tried to put it all behind me and focus on our new life together, but it wasn't easy. Every time I thought about our wedding, my heart ached with sadness. I kept replaying the events in my mind, wondering how different things could have been if Maria hadn't pulled her joke. It felt like a dark cloud was hanging over a beautiful memory. Fortunately, we soon left for our honeymoon. It was a huge relief to get away from all the drama and stress. Jayden and I had a wonderful time exploring new places and making beautiful memories together. It was the perfect escape. For those 2 weeks, I felt like everything was back to normal. We laughed, relaxed, and enjoyed each other's company without a care in the world. But when we returned, reality hit us hard. As soon as we pulled up to our house, Maria was there, waiting for us on the doorstep. My heart sunk, and a knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. I knew a confrontation was inevitable, but I wasn't prepared for it to happen the moment we got back. The worst part was, she didn't even apologize. Instead, she kept insisting it wasn't her fault and that it was all just a joke. She tried to justify her actions, saying, "I didn't think it would make you sick. I was just trying to lighten the mood." I was furious that she refused to take any responsibility. I couldn't believe she was trying to pass off what happened as a harmless prank. Jayden couldn't take it anymore. He exploded, telling her this was the end, that she had crossed a line and had to admit she was wrong. If she ever wanted him to speak to her again, she had to apologize to me. He said she had hurt me deeply, and that was unacceptable. Maria tried to interrupt, but he wouldn't let her. He continued, "From now on, we will only see you on holidays. No more surprise weekend visits, no more unnecessary calls." It would be as if they were distant relatives who only met on special occasions. Maria was shocked and burst into tears, but Jayden stood his ground. I could see how hard it was for him to put his mother in her place, but he was determined to stand by me and make sure I felt safe. Yesterday, while I was at the office, Maria called me. I was very surprised as we hadn't spoken in a long time, and I didn't expect her to reach out, especially during the workday. She said she was outside my office and wanted to meet. I was flustered and definitely didn't want her coming inside and causing a scene, so I decided to go out to her to avoid any drama. We sat down at a small cafe across the street, and I could immediately see how upset she was. As soon as we started talking, she burst into tears. It was incredibly awkward. People around us started to turn and stare. She said she couldn't believe what Jayden was doing. He wasn't answering her calls or texts. She was desperate and begged me to talk to him on her behalf, claiming she just wanted things to go back to the way they were. I want to remind you that at this point, Maria still hadn't apologized to me for what happened at the wedding. It seemed like she was in complete denial about the consequences of her actions. I told her that instead of coming to my workplace and making a scene, she should think about how her actions had affected Jayden and me. I explained that she had ruined my wedding day, and it was unfair of her to expect me to just overlook it and talk to my husband for her sake. She tried to make excuses, saying she didn't mean to cause harm and that she was sorry my body had reacted that way. It seemed she was completely unable to see beyond her own perspective and understand that her actions had real consequences. She kept repeating, "If I had known that would happen, I never would have done it." Meanwhile, she continued to sob, and the people in the cafe were looking at us with concern. I felt extremely uncomfortable and just wanted to get out of there. I told her I would see what I could do, but made no promises. I still haven't spoken to Jayden about it because I'm not sure if I'm ready to forgive Maria. After all, she didn't even apologize until I brought it up myself. My mom advises me to let it go and forgive my mother-in-law, but I'm not sure. What do you think? I really need some advice. Update 1. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your comments and advice. It means a lot to be able to share my story and receive support. I was tired of Maria's constant calls and messages, and it was starting to wear me down, so I decided it was time to talk to Jayden again and find a way to resolve this. I told him that Maria had come to my office and apologized. This was a bit of an exaggeration because her apology was far from what I wanted to hear, but I felt it was time to at least try to mend things. I told Jayden that I had forgiven her. For the most part, this was true because I wanted to leave this whole nightmare behind and focus on the future. Jayden looked at me with concern and asked if I was sure. I said yes, but we need to set boundaries with your mom to avoid any more drama. He believed I was ready to forgive her, but also understood that it wasn't just about me, but about us as a couple and our need for peace and stability. After our conversation, Jayden texted Maria. He said he was glad she had apologized to me and that we were willing to try to repair our relationship. But he also made it clear that he stood by his decision. No unexpected visits, no constant calls, and no attempts to cross our boundaries. He said we needed space to focus on our own lives. Maria replied almost immediately, saying she was sorry and that she just wanted to be a part of our lives. She promised to respect our boundaries and give us the space we asked for. I still have mixed feelings. On one hand, I'm glad that Maria seems to be taking our conditions seriously. On the other hand, I still feel anxious because I know that one slip up from her and all the drama will come rushing back. I'm trying to focus on the positive and remind myself that we are making progress, however slow. Many of you also asked about my anxiety. I'll just say that I'm not very comfortable discussing it, but I appreciate your concern. My anxiety wasn't about doubting Jayden or our relationship. I knew he was the one from the moment we got serious. It was all about the wedding day itself and the stress of organizing such a large event. We had over 200 guests, and I wanted everything to be perfect for them. I was afraid something would go wrong, the food would be bad, the music wouldn't be fun, the decorations wouldn't be what I envisioned. I was constantly thinking about the little things that could ruin the day, and it was incredibly stressful. I wanted our guests to have the best time and remember our wedding as a beautiful and joyful event. Update 2. Hi everyone, something unexpected happened and I don't know how to feel about it. Everything had been relatively calm until last weekend when Maria called Jayden and invited us over for dinner. She said it was important for us to sit down together and start getting back to normal after everything that had happened. Jayden told me about the invitation and asked what I thought. I said it would be fine if we went. Maybe this was her way of trying to make amends. When we arrived at Maria's, she greeted us with a warm smile. But after dinner, she did something that completely stunned me. She left the room and came back with a check for $5,000. She handed it to me and said she was very sorry for ruining my wedding day, and that while she couldn't change the past, she wanted to give us this money as a way to make up for it. I was in shock and immediately felt uncomfortable. The gesture was completely unexpected, and I didn't know how to react. I immediately refused, saying I didn't need it and that it would be better to just put it all behind us. Jayden agreed and told her she didn't need to give us money. But Maria insisted. She refused to take the check back and practically stuffed it into my coat pocket. I was so taken aback, I didn't know what to do. She looked desperate, as if she needed us to take the money, which made everything even more awkward. We left shortly after that. On the way home, Jayden and I discussed what had happened, and we were both confused. Why would Maria give us such a large sum of money? It seemed strange and made me wonder, is she truly sorry, or is she just trying to buy our forgiveness? Jayden is just as upset as I am. We both want to handle the situation fairly and respectfully. We don't want to offend Maria or reject her attempt to fix things, but we also don't want to feel like we can be bought. If anyone has had a similar experience or has any advice, I would be very grateful for your thoughts.
Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and honestly, not much has changed. We still have the check from Maria. We haven't cashed it. It's just sitting in a drawer, like a reminder of everything that happened. I'm not sure what we'll end up doing with it, but for now, it's just there. Our relationship with Maria is at about the same level. It feels like we're stuck in a holding pattern, trying to be polite and respectful, but not digging into the past. She is respecting our boundaries, which I'm very happy about. She no longer shows up unannounced and has stopped the endless calls and texts. It seems like she is genuinely trying to change, and that gives me hope for the future. Jayden and Maria talk on the phone regularly, and their conversations sound positive. I'm glad their relationship wasn't too damaged by all of this. I also talk to Maria sometimes. Our conversations are polite, a bit formal, but we're both trying to maintain friendliness. I think this will be my last update. I don't expect much to change in the near future, and I hope things will continue to gradually improve. I want to focus on the good and move on with my life. I think that's the best thing I can do for myself right now. If something significant happens, maybe I'll write another update. Thank you all again for everything, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Well, that's where the story ends. There were no more updates, so we can assume that their family relationships continued to stabilize. It turns out my initial assessment was wrong, and Maria was indeed worth forgiving. Perhaps she's just the type of person who never directly admits fault. But as we can see, even people like that can make amends in their own way. I will admit, when the mother-in-law offered the $5,000 check, I thought to myself that many people in the comments would probably be saying, "Wow, I'd take a check like that. I'll gladly have a strained relationship with my mother-in-law if she gives me checks like that." If you had that thought, let me know. It would be interesting to see how many people think that way. Thank you for listening to this story to the end.